There is a specific kind of exhaustion that does not come from physical labor. It is not the fatigue of the athlete or the weariness of the manual worker. It is a weight that exists behind the eyes. It is the exhaustion of the observer. If you are listening to this, you likely know the feeling of a mind that refuses to rest. Even when the world around you stands still, there is a constant hum of processing. A quiet storm you cannot escape. You watch others move through life with a certain lightness. They seem to accept things as they are. They hear a joke and simply laugh. They see a sunset and simply watch. But for you, nothing is ever just one thing. A joke is a window into someone's insecurities. A sunset is a reminder of the fleeting nature of time. Psychology often uses labels like overthinking or neuroticism to describe this. But those words are clinical and cold. They treat your depth as a bug in the system rather than a feature of your existence. This is not just thinking too much. This is a distinct way of being. It is a neurological reality where the filter between you and the world is thinner than it is for most. In this exploration, we are going to look beneath the surface. We will examine the mechanics of the deep mind, the biological roots of your awareness, and the spiritual exile that often accompanies it. Most importantly, we will look at how to move from being a victim of your thoughts to being a steward of your depth. To understand why you think the way you do, we have to look at how the brain filters reality. Imagine you are standing in a crowded coffee shop. For the average person, the brain performs a feat of sensory gating. It identifies the sound of the espresso machine, the background music, and the chatter of strangers as noise and discards it. This allows them to focus entirely on the person sitting across from them. But for the deep thinker, the gate is propped open. This is a phenomenon known as low latent inhibition. Your brain does not automatically categorize the noise as useless. Instead, it treats every piece of data as potentially relevant. You notice the slight tremor in the barista's hand. You hear the specific lyric in the background song that contradicts the mood of the room. You see the way the light hits a dusty shelf. This is why you feel overwhelmed in high-stimulus environments. It is not that you are shy or antisocial. It is that you are processing 10 times more data per second than the person next to you. You are receiving a high-definition, 4K stream of reality while others are watching a low-resolution summary. This leads to what we call associative thinking. Because you have all this data, your brain naturally looks for patterns. You don't just see a flickering lamp, you wonder about the electrical grid, then the city's infrastructure, then the passage of time, and suddenly you are thinking about the decline of civilizations while you were supposed to be ordering a latte. Your mind is a web, not a line. Why is the gate propped open? For some, the answer lies in the past. Psychology identifies a state called hypervigilance. This often develops in childhood as a survival mechanism. If you grew up in a home where the emotional atmosphere was unpredictable, where a parent might be happy one moment and explosive the next, you had to become an expert at reading the air. You learned to decode the sound of a footstep in the hallway. You studied the micro-expressions on a face to predict the next storm. You became a meteorologist of human emotion because your safety depended on it. In these cases, deep thinking began as a shield. Logic was a fortress you built to protect yourself from the chaos of feeling. If you could understand why things happened, you believed you could prevent them from hurting you again. However, even if the danger has long passed, the habit remains. The brain stays in scanning mode, looking for subtext and hidden meanings in every conversation. You are no longer in danger, but your mind is still dressed for a storm. Understanding this is the first step toward healing. Your depth was once your protector, you do not have to hate it, but you do have to teach it that it is safe to put the shield down. For others, the hum is not about the past, but about the present wiring of their biology. Neuroscientists have identified a system in the brain called the default mode network, or the DMN. This is the part of the brain that becomes active when you are not focused on a specific task. It is the daydreaming center. It is responsible for self-reflection, remembering the past, and imagining the future. In most people, there is a clear toggle switch. When they start working, the DMN shuts off and the task-positive network takes over. They become present. But in the deep thinker, the DMN often stays active even during tasks. You are working on a spreadsheet, but you are also reflecting on a conversation you had 3 years ago. You are driving a car, but you are also pondering the ethics of artificial intelligence. This hot DMN is why deep thinkers often struggle with traditional meditation or just being present. Your brain's default state is one of high-level synthesis. It is always trying to weave your experiences into a coherent narrative. It is looking for the why behind the what. This is an incredibly energy-intensive process. It is why you can feel physically exhausted after a day of doing nothing but sitting in a chair. Your brain has run a marathon while your body stayed still. There is a loneliness that is unique to the deep thinker. It is the loneliness of being in a room full of people and realizing that you are tuned into a different frequency. Our modern world is built for speed, not depth. We communicate in headlines, 280-character thoughts, and 10-second videos. The culture rewards the quick answer, the confident take, and the shallow reaction. In this environment, the deep thinker feels like a relic of a different age. You want to discuss the nuance of a situation, but the world wants a yes or no answer. You want to explore the gray areas, but the world is obsessed with black and white. This often leads to what we call social masking. You learn to simplify yourself. You edit your thoughts before they leave your mouth because you have learned that most people don't actually want the deeper version of the truth. They want the comfortable version. You find yourself playing a character, the chill friend or the quiet coworker, while inside, your mind is a roaring ocean of complexity. Over time, this masking creates a sense of alienation. You feel that if people knew what was actually going on inside your head, they wouldn't understand. You start to believe that your depth is a barrier to connection, rather than a bridge. But the truth is the opposite. Your depth is what allows for the only kind of connection that actually matters. One of the most difficult aspects of being a deep thinker is the intensity of your empathy. This is not just being a nice person. It is a biological resonance. Deep thinkers often have a highly active mirror neuron system. These are the cells in the brain that fire both when we perform an action and when we observe someone else performing it. When you see someone who is hurting, your brain doesn't just understand their pain intellectually. It recreates a version of that pain within you. You feel the tension in their shoulders. You feel the heaviness in their voice. This is why deep thinkers are often drawn to the healer roles, the listeners, the counselors, the ones everyone goes to with their problems. But there is a dark side to this called empathy fatigue. Because you are so porous, you end up carrying emotional luggage that isn't yours. You go to a party and leave feeling exhausted because you unconsciously absorbed the anxieties of 5 different people. You watch a tragedy on the news and it haunts you for days because you cannot see the suffering. You must learn that empathy without boundaries is self-destruction. You can be a deep thinker without being a sponge. You can acknowledge the pain of the world without letting it occupy the center of your soul. We must distinguish between deep thinking and rumination. Deep thinking is expansive, it moves toward understanding, creation, and connection. Rumination is circular, it moves toward shame, regret, and anxiety. Rumination is when the mind gets stuck in a loop. It is the should have said and the what if. For the deep thinker, the line between these two is very thin. Because you are so good at analyzing patterns, your brain will occasionally use that skill against you. It will take a mistake you made and analyze it from 1,000 different angles until the mistake feels like a catastrophe. The key to breaking the loop is to realize that rumination is not actually thinking. It is a glitch in the system. It is the mind trying to solve a problem that cannot be solved with logic. You cannot think your way out of a feeling. You cannot analyze your way into self-love. When the mind begins to loop, it is often a sign that there is an emotion you are trying to avoid. Instead of asking, "Why am I thinking this?" try asking, "What am I feeling right now?" Usually, the answer is something simple: I am lonely, I am tired, or I am afraid. By naming the feeling, you take the fuel away from the thought loop. So, how do we live with this mind? The answer is not to become less deep. You cannot turn a lighthouse into a candle just because the light is sometimes too bright. The goal is stewardship. Stewardship is the art of managing a gift that you did not ask for but have been given. The first step is moving from analysis to observation. There is a massive difference between thinking about your thoughts and observing your thoughts. When you think about your thoughts, you are in the storm. When you observe your thoughts, you are the mountain watching the storm pass. This is the essence of mindfulness. You don't have to stop the hum. You just have to stop identifying with it. You are not your thoughts, you are the space in which the thoughts occur. The second step is the necessity of creation. The deep mind is a generator. It produces an enormous amount of mental energy. If that energy is not given an outlet, it will turn inward and become destructive. This is why almost all deep thinkers feel a pull towards some form of creation, writing, art, coding, gardening, or building. You must give the hum a place to go. You must turn the noise into a signal. The third step is accepting your own pace. You live in a world that values the hustle, the grind, and the quick fix. You must give yourself permission to be slow. It takes time to process the world at the resolution you are using. Do not apologize for needing more time to make a decision, or more time to recover from a social event, or more time to think. You were not made to skim the surface. You were made for the deep water. For a long time, you may have felt that your mind was a burden. You may have wished you could just turn it off and be like everyone else. You may have felt like a stranger in a world that seems to find life so simple. But the world needs people who see the subtext. It needs people who feel the weight of history. It needs people who can sit with mystery without needing to name it. Your depth is not a defect. It is your contribution. The struggle you feel is not a sign that something is wrong with you. It is simply the friction of a deep soul living in a shallow time. Stop trying to swim in the shallow end. It will only bruise you. Accept the depth. Accept the quiet. Accept the hum. Because once you stop fighting the water, you realize that the depth isn't what's drowning you. It's what's holding you up. You are a deep thinker. And that is enough.